The NBA has more drama than the WWE. And to talk about some of that drama, we have friend of the program, Scoop B. Robinson. You can find him over at Valley Sports, where he's a host and a writer over there, and the man who always provides the accurate info. Scoop, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me.
All right. So the last time we talked, we were talking about the Brooklyn Nets situation, but yesterday, Joe Tsai, or the day before, Joe Tsai, Kevin Durant have a meeting. And the report is from Shams Charania that KD gave an ultimatum that it's either him or the coach and general manager, general manager Sean Marks and coach Steve Nash. Is that what you're hearing as well?
It's really not new news. In this instance, when the Nets had fired Kenny Atkinson, Kevin Durant wanted Tyronn Lue to be the next head coach of the Brooklyn Nets at the time. And Kyrie Irving wanted Phil Handy to be the head coach. And at the time, the Nets weren't considering Phil Handy as a head coach candidate, but Phil did request permission to interview for the Nets position, and the Lakers denied the request as an assistant. On the Kevin Durant side, Kevin actually called Ty Lue and told him that he wanted him to be the head coach. And Ty Lue said, before I even interview or consider that notion, have Kyrie Irving call me, and we can hash out anything and see if I get his blessing. And from every indication that I got, that conversation between Ty Lue and Kyrie Irving never took place. And ultimately, Sean Marks, GM of the Brooklyn Nets, hired his friend, Steve Nash. I know at the time there was dialogue about Greg Popovich potentially taking a head coaching position. He ended up staying in San Antonio. And I can also tell you that from folks that I know on the Nets side of things, at one point Sean Marks was considering Jason Kidd in a coaching return in Brooklyn. And so I know there's been a lot of talk about Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were co-signing the Steve Nash hire. I don't know that to be true. And here we are now. I know that there's a lot of philosophical differences with Kevin Durant and in a lot of respects Kyrie Irving. And even going back to the trade deadline this past year with James Harden, many people thought it was Kyrie Irving and James Harden not getting along as the reason why, James requested the trade or wanted his way out. And I'm here to tell you that it wasn't Kyrie, it was actually Steve Nash. And you're now seeing why.
Yep. And the thing is, when we talked last time, Scoop, I specifically was like, hold up. Is there anything about this Steve Nash situation? Because he got circles coached around him versus Ime Udoka. And they're both first-year head coaches. I know that Ime had been an assistant for a long time, but that nobody's going to give you very much grace as that. So when you say philosophical differences, does that actually mean we don't think he's a very good coach?
Those words never came out of Kai or Kevin's mouth when speaking with me, so I don't want to put words in their mouth. But what I will say is, specifically to your question about Steve Nash, I do think he was in over his head and dealing with the caliber of player that is Kyrie and Kevin Durant. But I think it's more on the lines of he's never had coaching experience prior to taking the coaching job with the Nets. And I know that there have been complaints from folks that I've spoken with who were on the team, not named Kyrie and Kevin, with just his rotations. And that's ultimately why DeAndre Jordan ended up leaving. But if you remember, I think I said this on one of your shows before, when you're running a Mike D'Antoni offense in Brooklyn, you know that's not going to be beneficial for the big man. So that makes sense. But the other side of the coin is this. I spoke to someone very recently. You can't be mad at the players for flexing their power when you enabled them from the beginning. Case in point, I say Steve Nash and Sean Marks are a package deal but so were Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, and DeAndre Jordan when they all were signed. Kyrie and Kevin will say, sure, we'll come. And then Kevin goes, but sign my man, talking about DeAndre Jordan. And you made it a big three. I don't have a problem with DeAndre Jordan. Nice guy. I spent some time with him when he was in L.A. and this past season, and then when he ultimately came to Philadelphia. But they were, in my opinion, banking on a DeAndre Jordan Clippers-style player coming to Brooklyn, and he's had stops since then. And it just wasn't efficient for that offense. So when you said, let my man come through, Sean Marks says, okay. And then you start that whole process of whatever we want, you do. And it seems as though they're putting their foot down now, and it's a little too late.
Yeah. It's after you've been letting your kid go out till midnight every night, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then you be like, "There's a curfew at 10 o'clock." That don't go over real well. But what do you think about this ultimatum? Is Joe Tsai going to give in and replace the head coach, or is he just saying, "Listen, I don't care if they can't coach or not. Y'all are just not going to dictate the terms of my team"?
People that I've spoken to over the last couple of days has been a mixture of different beliefs. And one thing that I've heard is simply anytime you put an ultimatum out like that, you're calling his bluff. And so they don't have to trade you. And now that they know that you're unhappy in your place of employment, we're going to make it difficult for you. And I know somebody that I spoke with in recent days that spoke with Kevin Durant and basically said, you need to go over a strategy on how you want to attack this conversation with the front office and specifically with the owner and Joe Tsai. And, that conversation obviously wasn't honored because, you get what you get. And it seems as though, in my mind, him putting out the tweet, meaning Joe Tsai, that I support the coaching staff, lets you know what it is. But I'll add this. You didn't ask this, but I'll add this for context. Part of the reason why Kevin Durant was annoyed was a lot of reasons. One, I know that, Kyrie did not get his extension. He opted in to the one-year player option for this coming season. But there's some other issues. The Nets, from a representation perspective, is lacking. I know that this coming season they only have one African-American assistant coach and lead assistant, Jacques Vaughn. Last season, you had about 3. You had Amari Stoudemire, who has since left. You had David Vanderpool, who will not be back. And then, even prior to that, you had Eli Carter, who was a close friend of Kyrie Irving. They played AAU basketball together. He was relieved of duty from my understanding, when he did not take the jab. And when New York City relaxed their mandates, I'm told that he was promised that he would get, come back. So that wasn't honored. And then on the other side, Adam Harrington, a gentleman who, has been with Kevin Durant for years, even in the offseason, doing his offseason workouts. Adam Harrington and Kevin Durant have worked out together. He was relieved of duty, still on payroll, but relieved of duties. And then you add some other pieces within the coaching staff, like Adam Keefe, who played on the Utah Jazz for years. To be honest with you, it doesn't seem like that coaching staff is relatable to the many faces that are and personalities that are on that team and are conducive to those personalities. And, from folks that I've spoken with, they feel as though, the Nets are trying to be, a system team like a San Antonio or Utah, and that doesn't really work for talented individual acts that are Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So it can be a bit frustrating. I know Kyrie is very adaptable. He's a point guard that can distribute. He can also score at will and get players involved. But I think when you have such dynamic talent like both he and Kevin Durant, as well as Ben Simmons, who, we still don't know what we're getting when he plays. But I think it's going to be very interesting, and I think he's frustrated. But I think to answer your question about who should go, it doesn't get any easier where, you've had conversations with teams last month and you know what they're offering. So, I've spoken to people. I've asked, do you think Kevin will show up for training camp? And they said, yeah, I don't see why he wouldn't. I don't think there's going to be a situation like Ben Simmons or even Anthony Davis over the years and James Harden. I think, Kevin loves basketball, and it's a 4-year commitment. But I don't think that's an equation. He doesn't show up. I think he does show up. But I do think that if the Nets win, I think the conversation might dissipate a bit. But as it stands now, from folks that I've spoken with, Kyrie Irving has a commitment to playing basketball. I put out a report today at ValleySports.com, kind of rolling out everything that's going on that end. But, as it relates for Kevin Durant, the Nets have had conversations with teams. Will it happen? Not sure. But I think that there is going to have to be some concessions on both sides.
Yeah, and now you guys were on with Scoop B. Robinson from Bally Sports. Now, on the Kyrie Irving side, what is going on there? Because there was talk about the Lakers and Russell Westbrook. It's been silent, but silence doesn't mean that nothing's happening.
There's talking. You just got to come to me for more reports, sir. There's movement. It's specifically to your question about Kyrie. Those close to the Nets point guard, have shared that he's opted in. He's going to play. And more specifically, they said directly, he's ready in so many ways to just go out there and kill it. And he's holding up on his commitment, and there's an excitement there. And one of the things that he's really focused on this offseason is his fitness. Specifically, the term that was used was he's thick. Because you know how women say, oh, he's thick, or like he's been working out quite a bit, getting muscular, and really preparing for an 82-game season where he's playing, and he's ready. As it relates to the Los Angeles Lakers, I've said it since July. I'll reiterate it. Kyrie's desire to play for the Nets was always there, but the matter of how it was going to happen was dependent on what the Nets and his representation would agree on. And they didn't agree on anything specifically on a new deal. He did opt in to his player option, but I know that from everyone I've spoken to on the Nets side, the Kyrie side, as well as the Lakers side, it seems as though it's more of a Lakers desire for Kyrie to join, at least this season, than it is Kyrie's desire to join. And I can tell you that those 6 teams that were named in discussions with the Nets, if he were to be traded, the way it was intimated to me is no NBA player has a wish list of 6 teams that he wants to join if he's traded. It usually is scaled down to 1 or 2. So when you're named 6 teams, if you look at a U.S. map, it all circles back to Brooklyn. I know you're like, huh? So when you look at it, you put Texas, you put New York, you put Pennsylvania, you put the 2 California teams. It's a triangle, but when you circle those touch points, or you put those touch points around and you zoom out, it all touches a circle, kind of like a Euclidean geometry type of situation. You know, people joke about Kyrie and being a
only
flat
Kyrie
earther.
could end up with that. Yes. Yes. Only Kyrie could make that work. Scoop. Now talking about my actual Lakers, right? And one of the things is LeBron's long-term future. Have you heard anything about that? And one of the things that I've noticed is that LeBron James Jr., Bronny, has not been on the recruiting trail. Like, he's not being recruited like a normal kid. And his dad was talking about him going to the NBA. Have you heard anything about what might actually transpire with Bronny?
Well, number one, it depends on what the NBA decides to do, and on the player side and the ownership side with the new collective bargaining agreement. Will one and done still be a thing? That's one. 2, locally in New Jersey, I've heard that Rutgers University could be in play for Bronny James. Anytime LeBron joins a new team, there's about a 3 to 4 year window until I feel those teams begin to be broken down and their power forwards and centers become spot-up shooters, albeit Kevin Love, albeit Chris Bosh. and in some cases Anthony Davis. And if LeBron James is looking to be teammates with his son, there are so many other options out there aside from the Los Angeles Lakers that have cap space, and two teams that come to cap space and stars. And if not the Lakers, there are actually three teams that come to mind. I said two at first. There are three teams that come to mind. Number one, the Orlando Magic. Number two, the Oklahoma City Thunder. And number three, a return for LeBron James, again, to the Cleveland Cavaliers.
What? What, Scoop? You can't leave us with that type of cliffhanger, man. That's like a good ending to like season 1 or season 2 of your favorite show. So I can't wait to talk to you again. You guys, he's Scoop B. Robinson. Man, you done left me hanging.